Welcome to another Heart to Heart discussion. I'm Cheryl Jackson, excited about being here tonight. It is a topic that's near and dear to my heart and very close to my personal life right now. And I thought this would be a great conversation to have. So, you know how we do it. Make sure that you share, share, share. Thank you for those who are joining us via Facebook, via YouTube, and also via our websites. We really, really appreciate that for both Spirit 1340 and Praise 104.1. But you know the drill. Share, share, share. Tell everybody that we're live and we have a great conversation tonight talking with the experts. As you can see, we've been promoting it. Our topic is caring for our seniors. Caring for our seniors. And if you're like me, you're either caring for a senior parent or guardian or auntie or somebody. If you're like me, and if you're not, you might be a senior yourself. And we want to talk about these latter years, and it is a lot to engage. So I've got some great company tonight. Real excited to have. First off, Barbara Bonsu is a nurse practitioner who specializes in family health. She's been in the field of health for the past 15 years because of her great compassion for taking care of older adults. She created house call practitioner services to specifically serve such populations within the comfort of their home. She understands the challenges placed on the older adult as well as the caregiver when it comes to healthcare needs. As a provider of house call practitioner services, Barbara provides routine primary care visits, acute sick evaluation, and treatment and health risk assessment to promote healthy living. These services are all done within the comfort of the patient's home or assisted living space. And when I tell you that is so important, she's a strong advocate for listening closely to patients and caregiving to ensure good communication for finding the best solutions for any problem. She's a staunch advocate for older adults, especially during such times that we're facing right now during the pandemic. And I am so excited to have for our guest tonight, Barbara Bonsu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ms. Cheryl Jackson, for having me on your show tonight.
I'm excited about the conversation. We also have Reverend Sue Harris Green, a social gerontologist. Ooh, these medical terms, gerontologist, right? Um, Reverend Green worked on the family farm where she learned the business of side farming. She planted and picked cotton and helped harvest peanuts and tobacco. I thought that was interesting to share. She's assisted her family in planting, growing, and harvesting trees. That background steered her to work for the federal government, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, as a fact, for years, where she served and retired as deputy director. During her tenure, she oversaw multi-million-dollar housing programs, including housing for the elderly. She consulted housing programs for the elderly in the United States. Reverend Sue also had the opportunity to work with the United States House Committee on Aging. She focused on rural and urban housing for the elderly, and she also worked with staff on improving nursing homes, which again is very, very important. I'm glad to have you on our heart-to-heart discussion tonight, Reverend Sue. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our seniors.
This
Thank
is
you.
such a great conversation. Primary caregiver for my mom, as I was sharing with you guys backstage, and have been doing it now since 2015 when she was first diagnosed with dementia. She has vascular dementia. I almost drew a blank. She has vascular dementia, which was causing blood specks in her brain to help cause lose memory. And so didn't understand or know all that went into caring for a loved one. All I know is oftentimes we're thrust into it because we love our loved ones and we realize it's our responsibility to make sure they have quality of life. And before she was diagnosed with dementia, she was caregiver for her mother. My grandmother died at 96, and my mom took care of her before my grandmother, my grandfather. And then before my grandfather, my father. My father died when I was 12. So my mother was a caregiver at heart. And so I learned from her. So when it came time to take care of her, of course, I wanted to step up and make sure she had immaculate care. But when I tell you, you never really know what goes into caring for your loved ones. Before we jump into our scheduled questions, let's talk about that. Just the beginning stages, right? What advice would you give to those who are jumping into caregiving, because it's not something you sign up for. It's just something you normally just end up having to do. Barbara, you have a calling on your life to do it. And Reverend Sue, you have a passion as well. So we'll hear from both of you guys on that front. Go ahead, Doctor. Go ahead. I was going to call you Dr. Barbara. Go ahead, Barbara.
That's all right. I'm used to it. So I would say, it is a very heavy task to take on. You definitely want to surround yourself with a social support group to help you manifest those things you want to do to fulfill the needs of your loved one. So I would definitely say you want to make sure you have resources surrounding you that can uplift you and support you during that time to make those decisions.
Reverend Sue?
I think just by the fact that you're presenting caring for our seniors during the pandemic, when we all on devices all the time, we on Facebook, we on YouTube. Every time I think we should see an opportunity to learn more about caring for our seniors, down to the disease, should jump on it right away. Just do it, because eventually it's going to happen to you. You're going to be in a situation where you have to care for your loved ones. And we need to know everything possible before that phone ring, before you get a text message, before the doctor call, because you're going to get a call. Which way you do it, that's a different way. But we have to be educated to what's happening right now. 70 million seniors, baby boomers.
Yes.
7 point something million millennials, which means that intergenerational is going to happen. So let us, while we look at other things or listen to different things, let us tune in, become so sensitive to the fact that when you see senior, when you see elderly, jump on it right away. Teaching the next generation that this is a part of our life. Baby boomers are here. 70.20 or 70.28 million baby boomers. We are old. We're getting old, and our children will really have to take care of us. So that's what I would leave to the population here, the listeners, that let's not take this for granted. The numbers are saying that we are here, and we definitely need to be careful one time or another in our lives. And I congratulate you for doing just that.
Yes. I come from a background, and I understand that not everybody's family is like that. We were pretty much forced to put my mom in a nursing home after she had a major brain bleed. It was against any medical advice for us to take her home, which is why I know Barbara's services is so important. She needed around the clock care. She needed around the clock care, and she's gotten that. As started, I thank God for the staff there. I want to shout them out really quickly, but it does take an active family member to make sure that things are done properly. You can't just leave your loved one at a nursing home or leave them at home to their own vices. And I've seen so much of that, right? I've seen, the elderly who are not, who just dropped off, if you will, and don't have family members. And I see how health decline. I want to talk a little bit about, Barbara, your services, because it is so important. Even, when we've seen those who have had major illnesses, to have a nurse practitioner in your corner or in your house, to come by your house. Before my mom was to the nursing home, we had a nurse practitioner coming in to see her. It is important because you, as the family member, don't always understand the medical conditions. Let's talk about it. What is HCPS and what is a nurse practitioner? Because that's another number of people are asking that, but you guys are the closest things to doctors. So talk about what the role of a nurse practitioner is and what the name in your company.
Sure. So thank you for asking. HCPS, that stands for House Call Practitioner Services. This service is designed specifically for our seniors to receive medical health care services right in the comforts of their homes. So we are doing routine checkups, sick visits, ear cleanings, etc.
Mm-hmm.
All those things you get in the medical office
Mm-hmm.
inside the comforts of that senior's home or assisted living home, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as what a nurse practitioner is, this is a master's prepared nurse who obtains her master's degree or his master's degree. And they have the ability to diagnose, treat, and prescribe for that patient exactly the way a medical doctor is able to.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because even in some of our primary care offices, the nurse practitioner is normally the one who's actually conducting most of the work that's done there. So let's talk about gerontology, because Reverend Sue, you are a gerontologist. Tell us exactly what that is.
Okay, a gerontology itself is everything about elderly from the standpoint of geriatrician, which is a doctor that actually focuses on our elderly patients. You talk about social gerontology. That's from the standpoint aspect of are they eating? Or everything we just talked about. That's social gerontology, working with families and guiding them into when they make that phone call, what to do. Talking to our friends and our family about hospice. That's a social perspective, and thinking about them as churches or a religious organization, or how to care for them during the pandemic. Are they eating? Are they visiting? Some people live alone. Making sure that we contact them. That's social gerontology. Making sure they're going to the doctor, just checking on them, making sure that they're okay, making our neighbors okay, and talking about going back again the young people, the Generation X and generation baby boomers, getting together and educating them to the fact that this country is aging. It's already aged now. So what are we going to do about it? That's social, from a social perspective.
What age do you fall into the category of gerontology? I know that is the care for the elderly.
Right.
So is it when you become a senior? Is it 65? Like what is the age that you would be seeking a gerontologist as opposed to a general practitioner?
Oh, if I would say 65.
Okay.
I would think 65 is a good age. My age, what I go by is 65 years old.
Would you say the same, Barbara?
Yes, typically, 65 plus.
So talk about why HCPS was created.
Cheryl, I created HCPS, also known as House Call
House Call
Practitioner
Practitioner
Services.
Services.
That's a mouthful, but
No, yeah. We want everybody to know what that is. Yeah.
I created it to pretty much ensure that our seniors of Prince George's County, Maryland, could receive quality, consistent, and convenient healthcare at their doorsteps. I really truly believe that our seniors deserve quality and convenient healthcare that is more than just a 15-minute office visit, if you will, where they end up with, say, 6 new prescriptions. So I took this kind of to heart and took on the task of creating such a service designed for our seniors.
And do you believe that that it's a forgotten, like once we become an elderly, Reverend Sue, do you think do you think it's a population that's forgotten in society these days? I know that every generation changes, and I'm Generation X, and Generation X is the selfish generation. And then the millennials after us and the Zers are no better. Do you think that the elderly is a forgotten population?
I don't think that elderly is definitely not a forgotten population. You said something very critical. Your mom cared for her mother, and guess what you're doing? You're ex,
right?
But you caring for your mother, and that's the point we want to get as a social gerontologist. We want to say, listen, help us. So now the ex would teach their children this is important, and their children would teach their children, and that's why we cannot be forgotten. At 70+ million, it's everything we do, the social media is products, is nursing home, is assisted living. Everything we have in this country now, we see elderly, whether we want to or not. We have to see elderly, and that's critical. You care for your mom. Your mom care for her mother.
And I mean, it's actually a rarity. It's not the norm. It really is. And so, I'm glad that, because you work in the field, that you don't see it as a rarity, but I don't see, I mean, in my group of, peers, not everybody have that heart of caregiving. When it came to my mom, and I had the help of my aunt as well, but it was when she was up and moving and still living in our family home, I was spending every other day there. Like, I was living in the home with her to make sure she wasn't getting hurt. I was bathing her every day. Like, I really took on the role, but not everybody is doing that. Is not an easy venture. And everybody's not doing it on top of the careers that we have, right? So, Barbara, what's your thoughts on it?
As you mentioned that, I think about some of my own patients that I have. I do see for a fact, like, there are a lot of, as you say, Gen Xers taking care of their patients. I mean, excuse me, their loved ones, their mothers, their fathers. And I typically see it, and it's typically called the sandwich generation, if you will, because you're not only taking care of your mother or your father, you're taking care of your children.
Yes.
So you're dealing with a dynamics that could be overwhelming. And that's why, to the point I made earlier, it's very, very important to surround yourself with a good, cohesive social network or group that can support what you're doing, because it will seem overwhelming, but we have the ability to definitely resolve these challenges we're met with, I believe. And that's where my services comes in, because I not only connect with the loved one, I connect with their patient, with their parents, and we work together to make sure that their mother or father receives the care that they deserve and need.
And that's why this conversation is so needed. Like, I'm so grateful for you guys to be here. So if you're watching via Facebook or YouTube, you have a comment or a question to ask, maybe you're in the caregiving arena now yourself, or embarking upon it, or maybe you have questions about caregiving. And it doesn't, I know we're talking about the elderly, but when it comes to caregiving, it doesn't always have an age, right? So, at some point we may need to have, caregiving, and these are some of the things. Now, you talked about, Reverend Sue, social gerontology, and it really is, taking care or keeping the elderly in the front of mind. Talk about some of the things socially that we need to do as a society to help the elderly. And since we're talking about social gerontology, some of the things that we need to do, like making sure, they have food, making sure, some of the resources that they may have, some of the paperwork that needs to take care of, maybe a living will. But give us some tips on, how we can be better prepared socially for gerontology.
I think the first thing we'll going back to family again, too, because only about 80% of our elderly are actually cared by 80% of the population, and only like 4 or 5% in the nursing home. So that means that it goes right back to family. We are doing it. Whether we're doing it good or bad or ugly, we are doing it. It becomes our responsibility, maybe because it's very expensive to have that 24-hour care. So I think I still go back to speaking to our young people, having workshops or seminars in our churches or religious organization, doing programs like you're doing tonight. Also, getting in touch, keeping a good relationship with people like I've said Dr. Barbara, people like her, because she has so much wealth of knowledge there. Yes. So we have to be out there constantly. As a social gerontologist, it's like I'm all over the place. I deal with AARP. I deal with administrational agent. I deal with Department of Housing and Urban Development or any place that have housing available. So we have that knowledge. We have to, like you said, share it with other people, because we take it for granted that they know, but we don't know. I know a lot, but when my mom was sick, listen, she was in a hospice also, it almost killed me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here I am. I'm supposed to know this, but I start calling on my friends or hospice ministers. What should I do? What can I do? And I'm in the field of that. So can you imagine, you don't know how much the bearing and the stress that you will have. So constantly, continuously talking, communicating to our loved ones, communicating to our brothers and sisters. So you don't be the only one, the only person that's actually caring for your parent. That
is so good.
Absolutely, I agree.
I always said that it's one mother can care for 10 children, but 10 children cannot care for one mother.
Come on.
Cannot care for one mother. I've seen it too many times. 10 children cannot care for one mother, and one mother cares for 10 children.
That is so true.
Yes.
That is so true and so good. I want to come back and touch on that, but we do have a question from our Facebook page. What Carlis, hi Carlis Brooks, what food programs do you have for elderly? My 81-year-old mom lives with us and we are constantly cooking. I found that cooking is best. I mean, when it comes to what caring for my mom, because she comes from a generation that didn't like to eat out a lot, but it's also being able to monitor their food intake, right? With vascular dementia, we had to really watch her cholesterol. We had to watch her blood pressure. We had to take her blood pressure twice a day because that was really what was causing the blood vessels to burst. And so it was, the cholesterol, the blood pressure and sugar intake, right? And so you can't do that when you're fast fooding or when you're buying out. So I understand what Carlis is saying. Like, is there food options, food programs or something, constantly having to cook? And I'm not promoting HelloFresh, but HelloFresh is a good one because they do have like fresh foods or whatever if you want to do the pre-prepared foods. But I'm going to leave that question for you as well, for Barbara. Like, I'm acting like I'm the expert because I'm dealing with Barbara, Reverend. Go ahead and jump in.
You want to go first, Reverend?
Are you talking about food? I am the worst person to advise.
Food sources. I guess she's wanting to know about food services. If there's programs or anything like that she can tie into.
Sometimes they don't have an appetite. Sometimes you need dental care because of that. Other times you need to check the medication to see what medicine they're taking. And dealing with, I'm talking about food, but some things happen. Or why can't I swallow? Because it could be a gastrointestinal problem. So all those things come into play when it comes to food. But just regular home cooked food, I ask, what do you want to eat? And if you want, now I wouldn't do this to Miss Jackson, your show. I started to say, if you want a piece of fried chicken today, so you get the fried chicken today, perhaps you don't get it tomorrow. Right, but not anyway. You ask them what they want. That's the most important thing. I think we talk about elderly. They still have a mind. They can think. They can do things. So ask them. Don't treat them like children because they're always going to think you're their child, and we can't treat them like they're our children. We always have to treat them as our parents to respect them. Even if they can't move, we still treat them. So I'm saying is that be healthy. Be healthy. Look at the Food and Nutrition Service, which is a part of the Department of Agriculture. Call them, and they have programs available. They also have booklets available so you can be guided on how you what elderly people should eat. It's Food and Nutrition, which is a part of Department of Agriculture.
Oh, that's good. Barbara, you have any suggestions?
Yes, I would definitely say check the local Department of Health and Human Services. And ask them about any food services or any kind of assistance that they may provide to the community. Typically, you can get somewhere with that. It is true that home cooked meals are the best. I still make sure in my household, we don't eat out. it's because a home cooked meal is very healthy in that you're seeing what you're placing in the food and you can monitor the intake of your loved one. You know, a lot of times it could be so simple. Our loved ones may stop eating for a certain reason. Maybe if you're buying like fast food, they don't want that. Their taste buds change over time. So some of those things that they're tasting that's made or prepared outside of home can be a little off-putting. It could be that there's a swallowing challenge, you know, as the Reverend said, a lot of times they may just, what did you say, Reverend? You were mentioning how like,
You mean the
oh,
medication or
the
something?
medication, yes. The
Right.
medication definitely can thwart your desire to eat. You might have a decreased appetite. So you want to monitor these things. And typically, when we're working closely with our loved ones, we know that they have likes and dislikes and things that they usually found interest in, they typically steer towards eating a lot of. So you want to give them those things that they like. So yeah, you might have that fried chicken once here and there, but you also want to try to make it more healthier, put a salad with it, some, you know, other items of fruit and things like that. So, you know, you want to make a compromise and definitely try to, you know, take a stab at doing it at home for yourself. But like I said, the Department of Health and Human Services, they can definitely connect you with resources if you're looking to get something from outside the house.
One of our viewers had a suggestion. Linda Haskin Wren. She said, "Hi, Mom Meals, however, is an awesome resource. They provide prepackaged frozen healthy meals, a government-funded resource, or you can purchase
Nice.
directly sufficient portions breakfast meals as well." Thank you, Linda. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
and I
Mom's
think that
meals.
if you went to Health and Human Services, like you said, Barbara, that probably would have been one of the resources they would have sent them to.
Yes.
So I love how this village is kind of coming together and helping us with this
Exactly.
conversation. Bradley Deborah said this too. She said, "Share the responsibility. It takes a village." And that's one of the things I had to learn to do. We were talking about how I have an older brother and like giving responsibility to some other people as well, not trying to take it on. It was a time, I got to tell you, where I was at the nursing home every single day. And so, being a radio announcer, my schedule is not, is always, impactful. But I would leave my mom, I would give her a bath and she would stay at my aunt. Then I would go to work and I would go back to her, right? I'll go right back to her. And if I had events, I was doing that too. And I was worn out. When I tell you I was worn out right before the pandemic. And so I think that that's a great point of sharing the responsibilities. You guys want to touch on that?
I definitely agree.
Mm-hmm.
That support system is so important. I can't stress it enough. Even sometimes you might need someone to just call you, a friend or, you know, another sibling or someone to say, hey, I'm checking in. Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we just can become so consumed with this is heavy for me. I'm dealing with this. I got this. No one understands. And you're just in your own little world. You're not really, you know, thinking of soliciting help from someone else. You want to definitely have a good support group around you, whether it's family, friends, you know, church family, work family, whatever you can kind of latch onto, because that's going to be needed. And if you have siblings, to share that responsibility, that is extra helpful. Two heads are always better than one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely you want to do that.
Riley said, "Don't wear yourself out because you may end up becoming the patient."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amen. Reverend Sue, you want to touch on that real
I
quick?
think that the first thing I advise to have a family meeting. Have a family meeting.
Communication is key.
That's communication, and this is what it is. This is what we have to do. And it's always the lead person, whether you want that job or not, as a primary care person. For some reason, it doesn't mean you're the oldest or the youngest. It just happens sometimes. You have a family meeting, and we get serious about it. And if necessary, give assignments. Give assignments.
That's good.
And if they're out, not necessarily living in in the same community, they still have assignment. If they're living in Alaska, you still giving them assignment. Everybody, and they figure it out, they work it out. And sometimes when family members really get serious about this, I had some people where they actually, when they took vacation, they went to that's their vacation. And the primary care person is there, but that person can go on a vacation. The most important thing I believe as far as caring for your loved one is that you cannot get burned out.
Right.
You cannot get burned out.
I learned the hard way.
Yeah, but you know now.
I do. Right. Lee Harris says, our seniors can benefit greatly from the services these women provide. The Black community in particular should take advantage of their expertise and take solace of their first-hand Black experience. I think that's awesome. And this is why we're having this conversation with these experts. So for house call practitioner services, how is that helpful when it comes to assisted living facility owners and not only seniors? Because I know you'll make house calls, but you also will work with assisted living facilities. Talk a little bit about that, Barbara.
Okay, great. Excellent question. So let me tackle the first part of that question. As far as the assisted living facility owners are concerned, house call practitioner services is like a great marketing tool for them because they're trying to secure their residents in a place where they can have a one-stop shop. They're being taken care of by their assisted living care teams, and they may have physical therapy coming in or occupational therapy coming in. But then there's my service. You can have primary care health service come in through house call practitioner services. So these assisted living owners can simply say, hey, we have a nurse practitioner that comes in to see our residents 24/7. And, that is a great benefit for staying with us or having your loved one come and stay with us so we can make sure that they get a centralized care plan set into place for them. The other benefit is the quality of care that house call practitioner services provides to these residents within the assisted living setting. And to address the second part of the question regarding the seniors, as for the seniors, the simple convenience of having a healthcare provider come in to see you where you're living instead of transportation having to be arranged, or as the loved one that has to take them to appointments, you having to take off work or doing some of those things to rearrange your schedule, that won't be necessary if they're right within the comforts of an assisted living. We will make arrangements to come and see them when it's an appropriate time for them and the assisted care living team. So the seniors have that ability to be seen by the provider right in the comforts of their home. Also, the fact that the care that we provide through house call practitioner services is very holistic, meaning it's not just the physical health that we're addressing. We're looking at the mental and the social aspect of it, where it's well-rounded, because that helps us to provide that fulfillment in all needs for that person. Our care encompasses the senior, the family, and the assisted living care staff if they're involved. And that helps us to kind of address their whole total needs, as I mentioned. So, it's been very beneficial for my seniors and the assisted living owners in that respect.
That's good. I saw Ebony McMorris had a comment. If we can pop hers up, she says, how do you find help if the person you're caring for has serious mental health issues? And you just mentioned that. You mentioned that as a part of what your care takes care of, or what your service takes care of. So, and helping with resources with that. So that's a great, Ebony, point of reference. I heard Barbara talk about that. You want to touch on that a little bit, Barbara?
Sure. In the beginning, with us starting care for that particular senior, if the senior is very independent and can, be more a part of their own care, great. will work directly with the senior. And in some cases, though, typically most cases, there's a caregiver involved, or the organizer, the director of the assisted living. They will help to kind of facilitate the care for the senior. And we have assessments in the beginning where you're kind of, as the caregiver, checking boxes saying, okay, well, we noticed there's a decrease in appetite. We noticed that this person's not sleeping at night. We noticed that they don't enjoy doing the things that they once enjoyed. The list goes on, but you're basically filling out this kind of assessment, which helps us, before we come in to do the visit, to kind of evaluate what are the risk factors here of depression for this person. Should we be mindful that there is a high risk here, and we need to pair them with a resource that will definitely be able to come in and do kind of, some treatment, some therapy in that respect. So that really is something we address head on in the beginning.
Awesome. So that's a great point of reference through house call practitioners. I want to talk, Reverend Sue, about age stereotypes, right? Because not all of the elderly, or all those that are in, this age of gerontology is, need assistance. Some are still very functional. Some are still active. Some are still working, especially since we said the age is starting at about 65. We're finding like at 65, I'm still doing what I'm doing. Like we pray that we're still able to do some of the things that we're doing. I know it'll be a time where you have to just say, okay, enough is enough. But we're finding that there are more elderly still working. So let's talk about some age stereotypes with regards to gerontology.
Well, one thing I hear before I retired from my previous job is that, why don't y'all retire? Because you're taking our jobs. Well, we're not taking your job. We elderly people have energy, and they love working. They enjoy doing certain things. I don't think that we take jobs. And the other thing is,
especially if you're already in it. Like, come on, don't do that.
Apply for the job, and you're eligible. Perhaps you would get hired for a position. But that's something that people say, what elderly, they're old, they cannot work. That is not true. You're bringing in so much knowledge. You're bringing in wisdom. And it's been studies after studies that elderly people make great employees. A fantastic, administration on aging have done studies. The AARP have done studies, various organizations. And another thing is that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can't teach old people not one
another
thing.
Stereotype, right?
Yeah, that's stereotype. And basically, 31% of 75 to 79-year-old people own smartphones. They own smartphones. They're on social media. They're on right now. They're on Facebook. They're on every social media take that you have. YouTube. They're listening. They're listening. That age group is like really there. So they're learning right now. They're going to pass that on to their grandchildren, so that they would know. So and another thing is that a stereotype is that we old people don't date. They just don't date. No, certain age you should not date. That's definitely a stereotype. A spouse passed, and then you feel like going out dating again. It's okay to date, and for what your grandchildren say, or your children, no, you're too old to do certain things. But what I wanted to say is that you can't teach an old dog new trick. There are universities now are offering free classes to seniors, and we should definitely take advantage of that, the free classes. And also go back and get your graduate degree. Go back and get your PhD. It's okay. And that's what I wanted to say, is that it's important to do that.
I love it. Linda said my 86-year-old mom will text me in a minute. I like it. Especially, if your loved one is still functional, still at 65, still driving, and still, being active. And 65 is not the age of coughing. Come on. If we're taking better care of ourselves, we're eating better, we're being more mindful of foods and things intake, we're being mindful of our mental health, we're talking about it more. One thing I think this pandemic did that was right, it really began to make us focus more on our health. Right? It made us sit down. It was a lot. It was very stressful. We went through a lot, but even through this pandemic or whatever, one of the things out of it is that we can stop and be mindful of the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves. And if our loved ones are still functional and still active and still healthy, then we need to take these stereotypes off of them and allow them to function in society the way that they are functioning in society. This is great conversation. Again, if you are watching via Facebook, if you're watching via YouTube, welcome to our discussion, Caring for Our Seniors During a Pandemic. I have nurse practitioner Barbara Bonsu is on. She owns healthcare house call practitioner services. And I also have a social gerontologist on, Reverend Sue Harris Green, making us understand this generation better. Michael loves my comment. 65 is not the age of coffin. Come on. We almost think that, thanks, Mike. We almost think that, because we get a certain age. I mean, my husband and I looked at each other the other week and was like, we got a kid that's 30? Like, really? Like, we, you know what I mean? Don't you remember when we were 30? And when you look back, time flies, but we're still functional. We're still active. I'm not 65, but you understand what I'm saying. Ebony says, are there good housing opportunities for seniors who are fully active that need financial assistance? And where do we find them? If so, good housing. So here we are talking again about assisted living. Because assisted living doesn't mean nursing home. It means that they're still very independent and can work and can, function on their own and still want to have their own living space. So let's talk about that as far as, what Ebony is saying. Are there good housing opportunities for seniors? Are there great facilities? Do you guys know of any, or where can they go to find out more about that?
So again, I would say your Department of Housing. You want to check in, maybe Google your local Department of Housing, and typically they'll have senior housing for whichever county you reside in. Utilize that as a resource. First and foremost, they can pretty much connect you with the different senior housing that's available. And there's a variety, because again, the assisted living is not the nursing home. It's totally different, because the nursing home requires a skilled kind of nursing care where you have something a little bit more of a need, whereas an assisted living home is more of the seniors being assisted with some of their activities, like cooking, getting dressed, and just kind of functioning throughout the day. So there are different types of housings available for seniors, and I would say just look at your Department of Housing first and go from there.
Yeah, and then assisted living also has living quarters, like apartments where they don't have to go up and down steps, right? It was like one level where everything they have is right there at their fingertips. They're still functional. They still have their apartment. They still can have pets. They still can do all those things, but they can do it within a community. And when I tell you, some of these assisted living communities are so amazing in Prince George's County.
Yes.
Like, after your kids have gone to college and it's just you and your honey, we were talking about downsizing and looking at some of these communities, because they've got pools, they've got recreations, they've got, if they have, great retirement, or if they have, funds set aside to, refinance or even do a, what do they call it? The lending practices for the elderly, you can get them into some of these facilities, and they're better than some of the homes we have, some of our single family homes that we have right now. So it just really is researching, and when you Google it and start looking at these communities and trying to figure out a way. So Linda Haskins Wren says she has a concern. I want to introduce this concern about her mom. Do you see that one? Okay, she says, my concern, though she's progressively getting depressed, talking about her mother, she's choosing to be the caregiver for her 81-year-old dad with advanced Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
And so she says, so I don't see the full thing. Oh, my Alzheimer's, all which trickles down. Where's the rest of it? Yeah, all which trickles down. So one of the things that I would say is to step up, because when my mother was taking care of my grandmother, that was kind of like her life mission. Here's the crazy. My mom had colon cancer while taking care of her mom, right?
Mhm.
And her main mission was to get better so she could finish taking care of her mom.
Okay.
That's the type of person she was. And I think that when you take on the role of dealing with a loved one or dealing with someone else who has Alzheimer's and it's your responsibility, you can get depressed because of all of the responsibility that comes with it, taking care of their banking, taking care of their financial situations, taking care of all of their insurances, all of their bills, caring for their homes, and then caring for them physically. It could really take a toll on you. So one advice I would give to you, Linda, is stepping up to help her, right?
Yes.
Help your mom, because my mother had siblings too, and they took turns, right, and gave each other breaks. And so it like you talked about before, Reverend Sue, it's not the responsibility of just one person, even though one person may take on the role or take on the helm, maybe the primary caregiver. Other family members who have the same compassion can literally step up to give that person some relief, so that they can get through their period of depression, because you can't help anybody if you're just as depressed. You guys jump in on that and talk about that. Reverend Sue?
Okay, I have when I first went into gerontology, kind of depressing story, but it stayed with me forever and forever. There was a film that I saw. It was an Alzheimer patient, and the caregiver was there. The wife was caring for her husband. He had the Alzheimer, and she did everything because he became used to her giving him the medication. He became used to her being around her. He wanted her to do it, not the children. And so eventually, at the end of the film, and it was about caregiving. At the end of the film, we saw everybody was dressed in a funeral uniform, and said, oh my God, he finally passed. You looking at the film, he finally passed, and kept looking and kept looking, and then it turned over to the, he did not pass. He was sitting on the couch, and eventually we knew who passed.
Wow.
His wife, the caregiver. It stayed with me. So that I always share that story, because you cannot afford to overwork. I know it's easy perhaps if you've never been a caregiver, but it's so important that you have to remember this, is that you have to find a way to get care. That's why they have respite care. You can take your loved one and just like Miss Barbara NP, she can tell you, she has a business, she can tell you some things to do. But the respite care, if you have to go on a vacation, then you can take your loved one there for a week or two and let them care for that loved one while you taking a break. It's so critical that you do. People say they can't do it. They can't. But yes, you can afford to do it, because if you don't do it, you will not be there to care for your loved one. And that would be the advice I would have for Linda, to actually think about that, because you can fall into the same category as your loved one. Is they're depressed, you get depressed. You have
a lot of people think that when taking care of them at home is a lot, but when you put them in a nursing home, it's just as much work, because you got to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. And they're not going to respond until you come, and you're coming at various hours, because they're working shifts. So you want to make sure you're in touch with every one of those nurses aid, the nurses practitioners, the doctors on staff, everybody. And I learned that by my mom going into a nursing home, is really getting to know everybody from the top. Set up a meeting and figure out who's who, who's in charge of the floor. Because a lot of people think, oh, taking them to a nursing home will give you a breather. And unfortunately, sometimes that's what we have to do. And not unfortunately, because it can be a help. But I think that we have to be proactive in all the situations. And I hear what Linda is saying, because she says she's helping them, taking care of their affairs because they're in their 80s, and then they're taking care of each other. As she was saying, I manage their affairs, but she's 86, it's too much for her. We have in-home care as well. And that's pretty much what you can do, right? And find as many resources as you can to come in. And some of these patients with Alzheimer's, as you said, don't want nobody else to deal with them. But we have to learn. We have to learn to find a way to find a breather, learn to find a way to still care for them and still care for yourself. It's a juggling act, but I know that it can be done. And grab one to Barbara's services. She's a nurse practitioner. Grab one to her and have her come and help you out. Call Reverend Sue so she can help you walk through the process, help you get those resources that you need while going through whatever it is you're going through. And again, I don't want to paint the picture that when we're talking about gerontology and we're talking about the elderly, that everybody's sick, right? Or that everybody needs help. I know at some point everybody, we will, but I do also want people to understand and realize too that not all the elderly are sick, and that we still should look at them as if they can function in society and not throw them away. So if you have comments, guys, on our social media pages, on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, be sure. We've got about 8 minutes to go. We want to get your questions and your comments in. If you have questions for our experts, House Call Practitioner Services is what Barbara represents. Is her company, is her passion to come help you and your loved one. Oh, she said, I love fellowship with Reverend Sue. I love her. Oh, thank you, Linda. Well, I'm saying thank you for you, Reverend Sue. That's sweet. So talking about house call practitioners, how are the services typically covered, Barbara? Because I know I could hear somebody buzzing in the back of my head. Or Barbara, like what?
Yes.
She called. Yes. What does she cost to come and help us out? So talk about that. How the services are
the wonderful news is house call practitioner services is mostly covered by your insurance, like Medicare Part B. We also are covered by Care First, Blue Cross and Blue Shield products programs. Like if you are you're covered by the federal employee program, the Care First Blue Cross Medicare Advantage program, and private pay, because some of our seniors may have funds that they need to spend, or they're looking to spend certain services on, or their family may say, hey, I want to make sure my loved one has top-notch care, so they're willing to be private pay type of patients. So those are just that's really the great news. Insurance does cover the services that we offer. So
awesome. So this is the phone number for house practitioners that's scrolling on the bottom. Amen. So 240-397-6694 for your free consultation. Log on to homeandvisit.com for Prince George's County resident and assisted living community. Barbara is here to help you. Reverend Sue, before we go, I know you have a list of resources that you might want to share for those who are dealing with the elderly. Would you, I'll give you opportunity to do that now. A lot of people who have questions may not know point of contact, so I know you have a number of resources to share.
Now, this is a miracle worker here. This is, it's called Elder Care Locator. The Elder Care Locator is fantastic. I remember when they established it, and it's the best thing. You call that number 1-800-677-1116, and they actually point you to, you talk about what you need, what you want, and they would tell you exactly where to go to get contact with your state office on aging, or your area agency on aging, which some county call it Broward Area Agency. DC call it DC Office on Aging. So it's a different name, but every county has an office on aging. Every state has an office on aging. And then you have the administration on aging, which kind of oversee the state office on aging, and state office on aging oversee the area agents on aging. And another thing, going back to housing, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has elderly housing program for limited income, the Section 202 program. That's an elderly program. And so we should know about those things. They're all around us, really. And also another thing is that, not assuming that everybody live in an urban community, but if you live in a smaller town, a rural community, U.S. Department of Agriculture has a huge housing program, rural housing service, and they have they repair your home if you need home repair. It's a grant program, the 504 program. You have the 515. It's an elderly housing program. They have all these housing programs in the rural community. So we should know about that as well. And another thing is that always rely on the administration on aging. Administration on aging is the agency for the elderly, the federal agency for elderly. Another program I like is the AARP. AARP is has a lot of products in their magazine, but AARP is really tuned in to from a political perspective. They know what's happening, they know what's going on, and they reach out and they offer various programs within our community that we need to tap into the AARP as well. Another thing we have is you talk about the nursing home, and 5% of our elderly in nursing home. And congregate housing, we don't hear that term anymore, but congregate housing is housing for our elderly, and you are required by law to provide 5 services in within those homes. We have one here in Washington, D.C., the first congregate housing in the United States. It's right at 14th Street. It's called Samuel Jackson Housing, but it's a congregate housing, and it's got all the 5 services that's required by law. Another thing reference is that if you live in or want federal housing financed by the federal government, they are required by law to offer a pet. They choose the pet, but by law you can have a pet. Because sometimes you go to facilities and they say no pets. But if by law, like in Section 202, it's by law they have to offer a pet. They choose the type of pet, but they can't say you can't have pet within the facility. Basically, that's the major ones. The Alzheimer Association, we have memory care facilities. You talked a little bit about the memory care facilities and group homes. A lot of them in group homes, not necessarily in a large apartment building, but you might have 3 or 4 or 5 residents in one group home. They have quite a few in Maryland and around DC for the elderly. Another thing is a senior housing sharing. That's a group home. That's group home again. And independent living. We always have independent living agent in place to make sure. Another thing is that resources that we don't use very often. We look at our home and say we have to move out because we cannot maintain our home. Get an architect to come look at your house. It's not like it's more expensive we think it is. They have the mind to look around and see, wait a moment, I can change this. And it's not going to cost a lot of money. And you can still maintain your home, still call Dr. Barbara to come in to tell you all the services that you need, but you're still living in your home because the architect came in and said, you know what, if I change this, it would help you. If you do this, you can do that. And we don't see it. We don't see the things that are happening because we don't know the architectural business. So that's another thing that we can think about as far as our elderly.
And the Department of Aging, as you talked about, and especially in the district, offers financial assistance. Like they will pay for if you need to get the elevator on your the chair that goes up and down the step. They'll pay for that. They can rearrange your house to make it more affordable or more comfortable for those who are living with disabilities. Ebony McMorris is asking, will aging departments show you how to navigate other departments? They will. Department of Aging. I know specifically in the district, they helped us so much in navigating and finding resources for my mom. Again, if their income is at a certain level, if they're living off of retirement, Department of Aging, and I'm hearing Reverend Sue says they have Department of Aging in every state. So look for it in every state. Department of Aging will help financially help you remodel your home, making sure you have the toilets that are higher and
the ramps
in your home and all of those kind of things, making sure that it's safe. And if they have to knock down a few walls for you to be able to get around, Department of they will provide that too. Again, your income has to be at a certain point, but they can assist you with that. And you're right, the Alzheimer's Association was a great resource for me as well. and making sure, not everybody has Alzheimer's when they get older, but and not everybody that's older have Alzheimer's either. We have to remember that. But that is a great resource. But Dr. Barbara, do you have any?
I was just going to say, just reiterate what you said earlier about not everyone over 65 plus are sickly. So what my service does, I usually I tell my patients this because they'll say, well, I don't really know if I need your services because I'm not sick. Well, you don't have to wait to be sick to receive my services. Think of yourself, and I hate to put this analogy, but think of it like if you bought a car, you have to get the tune up, the tires changed every certain number of miles. You need to get those things tuned, correct? You should be doing that with your body at any age, but especially as you're aging, you want to make sure that you're having that preventative service, which I provide, so we can avoid some of those pitfalls in your health. So definitely, please don't hesitate to reach out. My number should be going across the screen there, 240-397-6694, or you can contact me through the website at www.homeandvisit.com.
This has been such an engaging conversation, and it's our hour already. Can you believe it? Before we go, I really want you guys to, we talked about how we can get in touch with you, Nurse Barbara, at the House Call Practitioner Services. Reverend Sue, how can we stay connected with you? Uh-oh.
202-374-0048.
All right. Give it to us one more again.
202-374-0048.
Okay. I'm just putting that in our chat. All right. And so just in case you need more information about gerontology, you can reach Dr. Sue, Reverend Sue. And if you need, house call practitioner services, reach out to our guest. Our guest, Barbara, Nurse Barbara. Okay. That's it, guys. This has been a great. It's been dear to my heart. I'm so glad that we're having it. We need to do it again, right? Caring for our seniors, not only during the pandemic, because we're easing up out of it. We're not out of it yet, but even in the midst of this pandemic and all of this great, all the stuff that we're dealing with, we can't forget our seniors. And so we really, really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your heart, sharing all of your expertise, all of your resources. This has been an amazing conversation. Again, thank you to those who joined us on our YouTube page. Thank you for joining us on our Facebook pages, our websites. We appreciate you guys from Praise 104.1 and Spirit 1340. That's our heart-to-heart discussion tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.